part of Double P Media, doublepmedia.com.
Spoiler alert, when this podcast talks about the books of his Dark Materials, it does so in the context of the most recent book. And when it talks about the television show on the BBC and HBO, it does so in the context of the most recent episode. You've been warned.
You're listening to The Dust, a His Dark Materials podcast.
Welcome back to the Dust podcast. I know you've heard my annoying voice a few times this year, or at least a couple of times this year, but now you have the person who actually makes sense when they talk about His Dark Materials with me. It's Holly, Double H. I'm Double M. We're with you to talk about Season 3, Episode 1 and Season 3, Episode 2 of His Dark Materials, the first episode entitled The Enchanted Sleeper. Written by Amelia Spencer and Jack Thorne. Amelia Spencer is an up-and-coming writer, by the way. Directed by Amit Gupta. And same grouping for the second episode, Season 3, Episode 2, The Break. So, wonderful to have His Dark Materials back in our life. The timing is a little weird for this podcast, considering that we've got with the holidays and everything being a little crazy, but we're going to do our best to cover everything for you. Not only are the holidays a little weird to try and do this over, but the schedule is weird as well, Holly. I mean, we're talking about the fact that we're getting the first 4 episodes before the UK gets a single episode, and then they will get their episodes aired on television one at a time, starting, I think, the 18th. Yet, at the same time, they will also get all of the episodes in one dump on BBC iPlayer. Which means by that point, so we're going to be ahead now and then dreadfully behind later. But we've got our own things to worry about. So we're just going to try and go at the 2 episode a week pace that HBO and HBO Max is giving us. By the way, Holly, welcome back. It's been a while. You want to tell everybody how you've been, avoiding the cold by staying south and giving care to animals and all of those wonderful things that haven't allowed you to do a single podcast for this particular podcast in 2 years.
Well, I mean, you said it all. That's basically what I've been up to. Yeah, I'm really thrilled to have this series back. It's based on one of my favorite book trilogies, and if you're just joining us for the first time, so I'm a big fan. Got dragged Matt along to podcast about this show after Game of Thrones ended, and now it's already almost over. This is it, last season. But anyway, thrilled to be back. I think it was a great first 2 episodes, and I'm looking forward to how it plays out. And I really don't think it's fair that we get to see it before the UK. It doesn't feel right, but I guess y'all are going to catch up with us. I'm fine watching it week to week, and I wish I only had 1 episode a week to talk about. Honestly, it's kind of my preferred method for taking in these TV shows I like nowadays. I like to sit and think about them for a little while. So I don't love that we're rushing through it right before the holidays when everybody's busy. I really feel like the show is not getting the attention it deserves. So that's my critique about it being on right now. But otherwise, I'm really super stoked to be back. And I hope a lot of you guys are out there along with us for the ride.
I blame Chip and Joanna Gaines and the flagship for them, the Discovery Channel and the Discovery Takeover for, I think, and again, this is reckless speculation.
Reckless speculation. Reckless speculation.
But I think that they're probably intentionally trying to wreck their relationship with BBC for whatever reasons. And I don't get it. I don't get it at all. But that's just, again, reckless speculation, but that's just what I'm saying. I'll say a lot more as we go along as well. Why don't we get into our ratings, Holly? Let's get this done because you've got places to be across the country. You're on a world tour here. So let's go ahead and get to rating Season 3, Episode 1. And of course, we are part of the Double P Media Network, so we must rate things in terms of doubles. You want to go first, Holly, or me?
I'll let you go first, Matt.
All right. Well, being a big company guy, can't just do doubles. I have to do triples. And so even though my rating's not high, my double rating is high. 8.4 out of 10, what I like to call triple P's.
Triple P's.
Yeah, that stands for pair of purple pajamas. Forget the of in the middle there. And man, this first episode just felt slow to me. I know there's a lot of exposition to get through. I feel like that maybe they were trying to catch up an audience. They were hoping to get a new audience, maybe, or something like that, and we're trying to catch some of this up. The scenes between Asriel and Gunway felt slow to me. I especially felt we spent way too much time having Will just be followed around by angels without saying anything or doing anything. There were too many montages in this episode. It's just Will using the alethiometer that he has no clue how to use nor ability. Just because he can wield a knife doesn't mean that the dust touches him in that way either. To me, the appearance of Yorick at the end really saved it a lot. But that's my rating for episode 1. What did you think of episode 1?
For this episode 1, I gave it an 8 out of 10 triple W's.
Oh, you're doing that. Wait, triple W's?
Triple W's. World wandering Will. I think where you may have found it was the episode was a little bit slower. I appreciated a little bit more of the world building, and my criticism of the book is actually it is about so many worlds. It's so big in scope, but our view of it as a reader is really narrow. And I think the show allows us to maybe just kind of get a better picture of how big the world is and what it means. So I really appreciated a lot of these little dives with Asriel, on his missions and meeting a Gunway. And that's not something we really get in the book. So I really appreciated that. And travels watching him actually go from world to world and cutting window after window, and then how they aged as well. It made it feel like, wow, he's been doing this for a while. He's been looking for Lyra for a while, and it just felt bigger overall. So I really appreciated that about the episode.
So your 8.0 is probably slightly higher than my 8.4. We're just on
maybe
different
so.
scales.
I think you tend to rate a little bit higher.
I never rate anything lower than a 7, Holly. Never lower than a 7.
That's
never.
true. And I rarely rate anything below a 7, but I'm not above it. Sorry.
You never rated lower, but you're not above it either.
I'm not above it.
Yes, right on. Well, let's talk about season 3, episode 2 as well, and just go ahead and give our ratings for this up front, and then we'll kind of break the stories down as we go separately. But do you want to give me your rating for season 3, episode 2 first, or me first?
Yeah. I'll go first. I gave this episode an 8.5 out of 10 double G's.
Double G's?
Gross Gomez.
Oh.
I don't like that character. I really liked this episode. I really do not like that character. We can get into that later, though. This one definitely picks up on the action and moves the story forward a little bit. If we have to get these episodes in like clumps of 2, this was a really good starting pair because it felt like we had like a nice little beginning and end, at least for the Lyra Marisa, journey for now. So I liked that about this episode, kind of ending that little arc there. Again, more angels and more all kinds of great things, new things that we haven't been introduced to until now. We got Gallivespians and I can't even think of all of the things right now. There was so much stuff, different worlds and angels, good angels, bad angels, crazy stuff. I might also, forewarning, get these episodes mixed up. It's really bad watching them together. So apologies in advance if I characterize something from the wrong episode.
Yeah, well, I think it's going to happen to a lot of people. An interesting thing, some friends of ours from another podcast called Measures of Truth. Now, they got these episodes as a screener, right? They get some of the episodes in advance. But there was no defining end credits or beginning stuff. So to them, that montage at the end of episode 1 just seemed like this big mess in the middle of a long episode, which seems really horrible way to ingest it. So at least we did get definitions, and the way that those worked, with the montage at the end of the first episode, really helped it to flow into it being two episodes just happening to air at the same time. I'm glad we didn't get screeners for this, Holly, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah.
But I gave this particular episode, because I can rate it separately, an 8.7 out of 10, what I like to call triple M's.
Triple M's.
Yeah, Mangled Magisterium Mercenaries. I love it when Yorick decides to tear up a human being. Loved it in season 1. Was rooting for it actually in the first episode. That probably brought some of my rating down too, because I was hoping he'd really do a lot more damage there. But when Will's around, and he's got a knife that can even cut through Yorick's armor, then I guess he has to calm down a little bit. Here he didn't have to calm down. That really helped. Everything picked up, as you said. I really like that. There's lots more crying in this particular episode for reasons, but that will probably be a big barometer for my rating this final season. Plus, we got some Mary Malone, which always helps greatly, even though she did absolutely nothing in this episode except for, well, that's kind of for book spoilers, which we'll do at the end of the podcast. But I found it to be her practicing for something. Let me just put it that way. I thought that she was doing very well with that, and just the glorious face of Mary Malone, scientist who relies on magic in order to travel between worlds, something that she never thought she could do. It's always great to see her. Now, ladies and gentlemen, at the Double P Media Network, which the Dust Podcast is part of, we like to say, who cares what we think? We care what you think. Bubba says that. I actually say that we should care what we think. Otherwise, we shouldn't be speaking it at all. Now, on Holly's behalf, I know that she doesn't care a single thing about what I think, but I do care about what she thinks. At any rate, we do care what you think. That's the most important thing. So tweet to @TheDustPodcast. You can check us out on Hive, just in case Twitter ends up going down. Matt's audio blog is how you find us on Hive. That's MATTS audio blog. On Hive, you can use that same spelling. For email, we used to have the Dust Podcast email, but don't do that. Send it to Matt's audioblog at gmail.com. MATTS audioblog at gmail.com. You can also leave comments on our website, which is mattsaudioblog.com. You can find our videos on the Double P Media YouTube. Very important that our bosses get those clicks, because you can only get a steak at Ugly Betty's for the amount of 23,000 video shots. And Bubba lives high on the hog, so he needs the money. Be sure to find YouTube. Their channel is youtube.com/c/ the word double, the letter P, the word media. Or you can simply use these new YouTube handles that are out now, youtube.com/@ the word double, the letter P, the word media. You can find Double PHQ on Twitter, Hive Social, and Instagram. Use that same spelling for their Facebook page, facebook.com/ the word double, the letters PHQ, which stands for Podcast Headquarters, or you can check out their website, doublepmedia.com. Folks, if you send us feedback, you're going to be entered into a contest. And I have the contest prizes right here with me. Hang on just a second. You could win a Mrs. Coulter Funko Pop. You could win a Mrs. Coulter Funko Pop. How do you do that? You just send us a feedback, any feedback, whether you hate or love the podcast, whether you hated or loved an episode. You can submit 3-word submissions. We play a game called 3 Words, where you try to describe an episode in 3 words. That's not all. You can win something else too. It's a Lee Scoresby Funko Pop. So we've got Lee Scoresby. We've got Mrs. Coulter. Who doesn't want to take one of these home with us, unless, of course, you purchased these 2 years ago when they first came out and you don't need another one? Understood that. But please, we'd love to hear from you. And we're going to reward you sending us feedback by giving these away at the end of the season. We will have everybody's name on a wheel. Holly will say spin. I will hit the spin button, and we will see together who wins one of those and then who wins the other one of them as we go along. Now, there are other contests that we like to do around here, but these are just between me and Holly. And these are our top 5 character moments of the first 2 episodes. Holly is probably completely unprepared for this because I dropped it into the doc. right in the last minute, but I did put it in bold so that she would be sure it would be something that she would see. She'll probably yell at me for not putting it at the top of the doc like she often does for our House of the Dragon podcast. Nonetheless, this is what we're going to do. We're going to think of 5 moments apiece, ranked from 5 to 1, as to what were the best moments. I have mine written down because I am prepared. That's the way that I go. Do you want me to go first, Holly, or you?
Okay, how are we even defining a character moment? Like, is it just like does it have to,
Asking too many questions. Just pick something and say it. It's all going to qualify.
Stella Maria.
You mean as her as a character, or a moment that she had?
I guess
Or maybe just for scolding Asriel because he can't clear his mind?
that's it. But like it was across multiple, I think it was across a couple of scenes where I just liked her putting Asriel in his place. Asriel he's a cool guy. He has done a lot. He just manages to like walk into a world and like boom, I got everything we need. Let's go. But Stella Maria. They say Stella Maria in the show, but I'm going with the way I've always heard it in my head. So Stella Maria. Sorry if that bothers anybody, but no. Yeah, Stella Maria scolding Asriel was the best. Yeah, loved it.
I'm going to call it Stella Maria also just because you did, and I can
Aw.
hide behind you as a shield. My number 5 moment is the Baruch and Balthamos kiss.
Very nice.
I love to see love on screen, so that made me very happy. What was your number 4, Holly?
My number 4 moment is Will and Lyra holding Will's hand at the it's Lyra standing up in front of Will when she has the gun.
Lyra standing in front of Will to protect him from Mrs. Coulter's gun. That is an excellent choice. My number 4 was the monkey conking Mrs. Coulter in the head.
Yes.
Finally, after all the times that she's wonked him in the head, he gets to exact a little bit of revenge. Love that. What was your number 3 moment, Holly?
Marisa and Pan's conversation while when he's begging her to let them wake up and let them go. And just their little moment. It was sad.
That was pretty bad. My number 3 is Amma using a Magisterium soldier as a jungle gym. Loved that. Loved her coming back and saving them. That was a beautiful moment. I wish she'd have gone along with them. I really wish that she'd have gone along with them because she is just an adorable character. Absolutely loved her.
Me too.
What was your number 2 moment, Holly?
My number 2 moment was Marisa Coulter and Father Gomez. I like how she tried, just from the whole thing, from how she tried to play him until she gave herself away, and then she kind of gave up, and then she was still in it until and then knocked him out. That was great. Loved it.
Excellent. In it to win it. That's what Mrs. Coulter was. She stayed in it to win it. Love it. And my number 2 is York doesn't like guns very much. Love seeing him take out everything. All of my great moments seem to be anti-magisterium. Anytime somebody's doing something to distract or to hurt a magisterium person, then I'm all for it. York, Holly, I can't text about York to anybody. I guess I could have sent you a text the other night, but I didn't know if had to even watch the episode yet or anything. I tried doing text to speech with the name York. I got York. I got Uric with a Y-U-R-I-C-H. I got Uric with a U-R-I-C-H. I could not get York to come out in my text to speech or speech to text transcriber in my phone. Get a better name, York. Get a better name. But you still get number 2 for me. Holly, we're down to number 1. So what was your number 1?
Marisa Coulter and Will Perry.
Ooh, that was
That
really
whole
good.
this I guess the set both scenes were really great, but the second scene at the end with with the knife breaking, that was powerful.
She really got in his head to the point
Yeah, she
where
did.
he couldn't even cut between worlds. That was really good. You alluded to it earlier, but then you pulled it back. But my number one is Lyra and Will holding hands at the end. That was fantastic. I loved that moment. Also hated that moment because, reasons. And
Reasons.
that's one of those things that we could talk about as we go along, or perhaps in the book spoiler section. We will have a small book spoiler section afterwards so that people who know the whole story can talk about that stuff with us in feedback or what have you. In the meantime, as I've probably exhibited, I don't know much about this story. Holly knows much more than I do. But I do know something about Lorne Balfe's score. Friend of the podcast, Lorne Balfe. Thank you very much, sir, for your retweet of my coverage of your musical anthology last week. I really appreciate you giving it your endorsement. That was very nice. Here's what I had to say about these episodes, which were just epic as far as the score goes. Lots of new treatments of old themes, and we got a couple of other new themes as well. This is a long segment, folks, 16 minutes and 20 seconds. So skip that much if you're not into the music. Oh my goodness, so much great stuff coming from Lorne Balfe in these two episodes. I was thrilled. So many callbacks, so many wonderful new themes as well, some of which we covered in the prior podcast, where I covered just a smidgen of the musical anthology. It's really hard to talk about things in a context where everybody can enjoy it, and I'm not giving away spoilers, but I had a good time just calling those cuts. Now I can give some of those cuts, at least two of them, a name as we get into things. But first, I kind of want to go through the stuff that we already know and the wonderful new treatments that Lorne gave some of the themes that we know. And the first one I want to start with is probably the first theme I ever talked about, way back when I covered the musical anthology from Mr. Balfe for Series 1. The cut on that anthology was entitled Lyra, Child of the Prophecy. And it's Lyra's theme. It's been used throughout the course of the series. I love it. But one of the things that was most interesting about the original anthology version is that it was interlaced with another motif that kind of crosses the bar, meaning that it goes longer than the measures of the melody of the theme. It didn't get used in this way with Lyra's theme a whole lot throughout the course of the series. But there was a point in these episodes, and I'm thinking if it's at like about the 56-minute mark, and I'm using HBO Max timestamps here, but somewhere right around the 56-minute mark, where we have Father Gomez setting up the spy fly and all of that stuff. By the way, just to point out, Mrs. Coulter 426 tweeted at me that she heard the spy fly theme in that same cut. By the way, Lorne has put out a whole volume 1 of the music that's actually used in the episodes, so you don't have to just rely on the anthology anymore. You've got the actual recordings that were used in the television series. And the cut that Mrs. Coulter 426 is referring to is called Find Her. That's also where you find this wonderful, wonderful version of Lyra's theme, coupled with that motif that I was talking about. And if you think back to season 1 or series 1, to the episode where Lyra was traveling north with everybody to try and save the children, there was a shot right at the beginning where Seraphina's demon was watching the people traveling north and was telling us about a prophecy. So that's where I call this the prophecy motive. But I love the way that it fits with Lyra's theme also. And again, you can find this in the Find Her cut on the Volume 1, Series 3 of His Dark Materials official soundtrack that Lauren just put out on Tuesday, December 6th. The figure that I'm talking about sounds like this. And then if you put it on top of Lyra's melody, or the way that her chords are played, it really calls me back to that first anthology recording. So here's what it sounds like together and the way that you heard it in the episode of television. Another callback, which I love. We heard it once in the first episode, once in the second episode of Series 3, is Yorick's theme. I love Yorick's theme. It's so powerful. It's so bold. It's not extraordinarily complex, but it just sounds wonderful with the low brass. Lauren Balfe uses low brass so well, and French horns down. He uses so well. I guess I'll just play the theme for you and then tell you where you can hear it in the TV show and in the soundtrack. Love that. And one of the instances where you hear that, going back to episode 2, is of course when Yorick comes and saves the day for Will and Lyra when they're getting pelted with assault rifles. He just jumps across, and as he's taking the guys out, you can hear that theme happening there. That cut on the official soundtrack, which I recommend that you buy, is called The Rescue. But we did hear it in episode 1 as well, when Will was, well, actually right before Will interrupted Yorick when he was taking out the townsfolk for capturing one of his bears. That particular cut is called The King, because, of course, Yorick is the king of the bears. And then once Yorick stops and Will challenges him to a respect and he throws his helmet down, Will brings out the knife and cuts through the helmet. You actually hear the subtle knife theme, which was introduced in season 2. You hear the melody of it, not really the chords of it, not big a build-up. That sounds like this. Love that melody. It's got big leaps in it. It's wonderful. It feels kind of exotic, as a knife from another world that can cut through worlds would be. The final callback, of course, is one of my favorite themes, one of the first themes that I also covered talking about Lauren Balfe's music for this series, and that is, of course, Mrs. Coulter's theme. Now, something I want to remind you, and I said this in the prior podcast where we were covering the musical anthology, there's a certain amount of dichotomy that Lauren uses with most of his themes, actually. He makes it so that both the melody and the harmony represent character separately, which is something that a lot of composers do, I suppose, but Lauren really does it well in the way that he will take a melody and sometimes reharmonize it in different ways in order to give different emotional context. At the same time, he will sometimes take the harmony from a character theme and then place a new melody over the top. And both of those were kind of in exhibition in this particular episode. One version, in the first episode, he used the melody and he put different chords underneath it as we were fading away from her at the chapel, outside the chapel, and then seeing that Baruch was working the alethiometer to find her. And that piece was really complex. I wouldn't have time to figure out how to play it on the piano. So I'm just going to play you the melody. Just go back to that scene and listen for how the melody is. And by the way, if you want to listen to just that really neat version of the melody, other than in the episode itself, find the cut, the lighter side, I think it's the third cut, on the Season 3, Volume 1 official soundtrack to hear it in its full glory. This one where we feature the harmony with some really nice cello work as well, can also be found under the title Mother's Protection. And it's when Mrs. Coulter is talking to Will the first time he meets her before he decides to leave, to kind of bait her a little bit so that he can come back and sneak Lyra out of there. And there's just this little melodic figure that just goes on the top of it. And there's no melody in there. It's just the harmony in this. And again, some really nice cello work. But that sounds like this. So those are some wonderful treatments of themes that we already know. And if you're having trouble remembering these themes, I mean, we've got like 30 episodes of podcasts to go back through with my musical analysis on them, where I break them down, tell you what they mean, all of that good stuff. But the previous podcast episode that we released, I looked at the musical anthology for Series 3 before we had any episodes, and I went through 5 cuts. And 2 of the 5 cuts, or at least parts of them, not the actual recordings, but those themes themselves, appeared in these 2 episodes for sure. One of them happens fairly near the beginning of episode 2. Again, I'm using an HBO timestamp, about 4:23. It's when Lyra wakes up from her contacting with Roger. And now, because Roger has told her where he is, the land of the dead, I can tell you that the title of that cut is The Land of the Dead. And we hear a little bit of that melody just as she's telling Pan about it. So I'm just going to play what I played for you with the anthology podcast that I did last time. It actually doesn't work with the arpeggios the same way. It's actually just straight chords being played underneath the melody. But the melody's really creepy, which is appropriate for The Land of the Dead, right? It sounds like this. So there you go. There's just a little bit of it. And another one of those 5 cuts that I covered was called Asriel's Republic. And I had mentioned that it was about Asriel or something about Asriel. And I think that really is going to be an Asriel theme, to be perfectly honest, because of the way that it's used. It's not used really in the context of his place as much as it is used throughout the course of these episodes as him. Now, the cut that this appears in most prominently, and it appears throughout many parts of the episode, but the strongest one, the one that was most beautiful to me, was the last time, at the very end of the second episode, on the official soundtrack of Volume 1 for Series 3. It's called Safe in Your Arms, and it's coupled with a theme that appears to be Lyra and Will's love theme. And that also appeared in the anthology as well, Cut 14, Love Across Worlds. But that's a big, grandiose version. This one's a little more subtle, but one thing that I love that Lorne does for both of these melodies is the fact that he uses what we call counterlines. As something goes up, then something responds by going down. It's not really a call and response so much as it is just kind of like complements the harmony and makes everything much more complex. But in case you didn't catch the last podcast, this is from the end of the episode. It's actually when Asriel first arrives on the island and lands the intention craft, and then him and Stelmaria start looking for Lyra, and he ends up finding Mrs. Coulter instead. But with the counterlines, it sounds like this. Beautiful melody, and it's got nice shape and really works. It's in a minor key because Asriel's kind of a dark guy. He's looking for Lyra. She's not there. He's not looking for Mrs. Coulter. Well, wait a minute. Now he's got her in his lap. So things are a little darker for Asriel. And the counter melodies are the lines that go down as notes are being held out by the melody, like this. Now, what's great about this is that this continues as we shift the scenery to Will and Lyra sleeping and Lyra reaching for Will's hand, which is a beautiful moment that made me cry for reasons. And I loved it. But this is a beautiful melody. Again, Safe in Your Arms is the name of the cut. Or if you want to go back to the musical anthology for Series 3, look for the cut Love Across Worlds, which, oh my, what a title for a track, right? And it starts with just Lyra reaching out to hold Will's hand. I love it. But the counterlines continue as the melody for this theme is being played. And this theme is really nice. And I'm not going to break it down too much until we get a much fuller version of it. But I just love the way it was treated here. So here's what the melody sounds like. And again, you can hear how the melody notes are being held out. And the thing that makes when long notes are being held out, something that helps give them life, give them emotion, give them movement, is to place these counterlines underneath them. But one of the most beautiful things about this cut is the way that it finishes, the way the episode finishes. We've had all of this minor stuff going on. Minor is usually a very serious, and it can be sometimes scary, sometimes sad. But just think of your more serious emotions. We typically get that kind of feeling when we hear minor chords or things in a minor key. But one of the things that's beautiful about the way that this piece ends is that it actually ends with a major chord. Major chords tend to give us hope. They tend to make us feel happy. And when Lyra and Will are finally back together again and they're holding hands, it is an absolutely beautiful thing, right? And it's hopeful. And so ending everything on a major chord brings a beautiful end to the episode. And I'm going to play that for you and bring a not so beautiful end to my musical analysis. Back with Holly to talk about the story in just a minute. Holly, I'm stealing an idea from our other podcast, which is the fact that when we did our House of the Dragon coverage this season for the podcast Before the Dragon, along with a crew of great other folks, we started talking about the stories in terms of just little segments that we call the tiny wheel of topics. The wheel is so tiny that sometimes it's hard to read what's actually written on the wheel, but we do our best. Usually I depend on Holly's eyes, which is very scary considering that my profession probably dictates that I should be able to see better than her. Nonetheless, we're going to spin the wheel right now and let you in on our little game here where we try to discuss these topics. Yeah, Holly, I can't read that. What does it say?
The prologue. It's really weird that this tiny wheel landed on like the topic that would be the first thing we would talk about on this podcast, like normally. But yeah, it's prologue. Yeah.
Interesting. The prologue. So, how did you feel about the prologue? Because I honestly felt like that it wasn't telling us anything. I guess there was some new information in it in terms of the fact that we learned that, God is just an angel, or at least the authority is just an angel, and he's got a devil on his shoulder, and that's about it. We finally got Zephania. Zephania had already told us a lot about the knife at the beginning of season 2. I guess it was cool to have her come back and do that again, but I just really wasn't that impressed with it myself. Now, how did you feel about it?
at the beginning of the first episode for every season. So it just felt like a closing loop. I'm not mad about it. I actually think it was helpful, especially if you're watching the show, but maybe you haven't read the books, or like you don't really get this information until around the time the characters learn it. Right now, that the authority is not actually the creator, but an angel. So just a little bit different there than maybe what if you were just making that direct like Christianity connection. So I think that's a little helpful. But then we talk about just kind of like the history of the angels and what had happened. That's good background information. We just really learned about angels kind of at the very end of season 2. So probably nice to kind of get started, especially since we're actually meeting angel characters, to kind of give us just a little bit more background, and in kind of an economical way, because there's a lot of history and there's a lot of worlds and there's lots of other characters and new things that we met in these first 2 episodes and others that we have still yet to meet. So
Yeah,
that's how I feel.
I like how it kind of does flip things on its ear in the fact that Christianity thinks of the fallen angel as evil, whereas here we're perceiving the angels that were cast out of the kingdom of the angels as actually being the good guys, right? So I like that. And again, it comes down to this fate versus free will kind of thing. But the thing that I don't like about that is here you have somebody who we've been told is destined to end destiny. To me, that's just kind of this oxymoron. It's like if they're fated, then have you really defeated fate? Even if it gives you a choice of free will from then on, I suppose that's what the argument is supposed to be. But it seems kind of like this silly little conundrum that just rolls around philosophically to me, that just keeps running around and biting its own tail. That's just me, though. I'm kind of crazy about that. Like I said, I wasn't that crazy about it. I didn't hate it. Don't get me wrong. I didn't hate any aspect of this particular episode.
So this would be a great time for our maybe show only viewers to chime in and let us know what they think of the prologues over all the seasons, or this particular one, if they found it helpful. Just to other people think.
I agree. I can read this one, Holly. It says, Roger.
Roger.
Roger, danger, Roger. You are in Deadland, evidently, as we learned in the second episode. But in this particular episode, first of all, Lyra needs a new pair of pajamas whenever she visits the land of the dead. Showing up in the same outfit all the time is sure to turn everybody off. Secondly, seeing him in the intake line, that was the one that got me. Where he was saying how, and she was trying to get to him, and the opening one was just, it was okay. But the one where he's in the intake line, it's like, that's exactly what I imagined the line to hell being, where you don't have a choice, you have to keep walking forward, and there's a big turnstile, and once you cross that turnstile, there's no coming back.
Looks awful. Looks awful. Man, I love Roger. I love Roger so much, and I really hate that the only thing that has really kind of bothered me about these episodes
is that he looks like an NBA player.
He's too tall. I love the way that Daphne Keane and Amir Wilson have aged little by little. It's a little more noticeable this season. I think it works really well for like the story and time passing and the importance of what the story is actually about. But Roger also being aged up really bugged me. It's the only thing that really bugged me in these episodes. I know they couldn't but I wish they would have used, maybe for this scene, these dream scenes, like these, oh man, I don't know if I'm getting spoilery, but it's like, I wish for these dream scenes he would have been like little Roger, that they would have shot those, at least his side of it, back in season 1 times, because it just seems weird that he died, but he kept growing. I think the height is one thing. It's the voice. I was like, oh no,
Deeper. Yeah.
it doesn't even, he barely sounds like Roger anymore, and it makes me so sad.
Yeah.
I don't love it, but I mean, it is what it is, and I'm really glad that the actor can come back for the role and work. I really want that for him, but yeah, that's a dumb gripe maybe, but it took me out a little bit. I got it. That's the only reason why I bring it up.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. He shouldn't even come up to the chest of some of those people he was standing around if he was the same Roger that he was back in season one. And instead, he's towering over a couple of them. But yeah, like I said, he's an NBA player now. Now, they went around that pretty well in season two because you did just hear his voice until that post-credit scene at the end of season two. And that was just a close-up. So you couldn't really get a reference as to how much he'd
Right.
aged. His face actually still looked fairly young in that shot. So you would expect death to age you, but not that much.
Yeah. Good point. Good point. Especially if he's been in that place the whole time. So, all right, I'm okay. I'm glad we found a workaround for this to make it a little easier to swallow.
Yeah.
I think that actor is really great though. And I really am glad that he's back, and I feel terrible for even having that as a critique, because it doesn't seem fair, but it did take me out, so I had to say it.
Yep, me too. Spin the wheel. That one's too many words and it's printed too small. Holly, what does it say?
Newish credits, newish music arrangements.
There are some things that were in the new credits. I mean, the newish music arrangement, I think the lyrics were different. What little lyrics there are in that, but I'm not even, you know who does that kind of stuff really well? Our friends over at Girls Gone Canon podcast, Holly. They tend to find all of the Latin and all of the translation, or usually Lauren himself will tweet out what the heck it means and what the heck it says. He has not done so as of yet, however. He may be waiting for the BBC audience before he does that. I hope not, because we'll practically be done by that time. Nonetheless, that may have been a little bit different. Felt like there was a little bit taken out of the arrangement, to be perfectly honest with me. I didn't talk about it in our musical analysis segment, so I thought I'd bore Holly here while I do it here. But that's pretty much my comments on the music arrangement. Now, there were lots of new things in the credit sequence itself, just like we got with season two. There were new additions like the knife and what have you, the Chitagaze stairs. Now we have things like the intention craft that we see Asriel flying around in this episode. We have this new world that's kind of in the center thread, which I don't think we visited yet. So I don't want to say too much about that, except in the book section. It looks like there was a depiction of an angel kind of in this square box. I was wondering if that was the same as Alarbus. Was that angel's name that Asriel captured in
I didn't even
two?
catch that until I read your note, and I haven't actually gone back to check it, but that's a good catch.
Right on. And I don't even know what I have here with lot D.
This Land of the Dead. It took me a minute to figure out what you meant by that too, because I was like, I was trying to make a hot D, like I was trying to connect it to House of the Dragon.
Yeah, Land of the Dead.
And then I saw it further down. You typed Land of the Dead. I was like, oh, duh, that's what it is.
Yeah. So I outsmarted myself there. Holly always figures those kinds of things out for me. Thank goodness. Appreciate it. Was there any others? I don't know if I caught anything else that was new.
So I don't remember if you mentioned this. Maybe it was something you said you didn't want to talk too much about, but like it's the long panel view that we zoom in on. Like it had been kind of different in the first two seasons. I will say the one we zoom in on this time has been present in the previous intros.
Just not in the center band.
It was just not in the center band, and we didn't like focus in on it because I clocked that one early. I remember seeing that. I'm like, I know what that is. That is season 3 stuff. I will just go ahead and reiterate one more time that this is a really great intro music, opening credits theme. It's so good. It's very powerful, and it just builds and builds both as you're watching it and then each time you hear it subsequently. I feel like it just like it becomes bigger inside of me every time I hear it. And especially like coming in and watching the premiere, I was the TARDIS.
Right.
I'm not making any sense, but yeah, it was really great. I love the theme song. I think it's kind of maybe underrated because not enough people watch the show and get to hear how amazing it is.
Well, I will tell you, Holly, I think that you are completely right. You're not making any sense. So let's spin the wheel. What does it say, Holly?
I intend to get one of those crafts.
Talking about the intention craft itself. Don't understand how it works. I do understand it's connected to dust. I do understand it can go through different worlds. And I guess just kind of like Lyra has to clear her mind to use the alethiometer. Will has to clear his mind to use the knife. That's how the intention craft works. It attracts dust and works in that way. I don't like the fact that Stelmaria has to coach Asriel on how to use it, and then he ends up crashing it anyway. I would never crash one of those things. First of all, I'd never get it off the ground because my mind's always too muddy to be able to get anything off the ground. Nonetheless, I thought it was cool. I thought the crash was cool. Everything that followed with Asriel for the rest of the episode, I'm okay with. But I did love the use of the intention craft. And also, the road to hell is paved on good intentions, right? So Asriel, being a guy that we'll see some of the things that he does in the next episode that I did not approve of, regardless, I feel like, that the intention craft seems to be appropriate, especially an appropriate name for him using it. What did you think of the intention craft? Did it meet your expectations with the way it was described in the book?
Kind of, yeah, with the weird spidery leg oscillator things that are back. Yeah, sort of. It didn't. When I saw it, I knew exactly what they were doing. Terrifying. I am not a person that is afraid of flying. But I do have a very healthy fear of helicopters, and that thing is a helicopter that is powered with intention. And no, I mean, that just seems like helicopters are easy enough to crash on their own. Like, what happens if you get distracted and you're gonna die? Like, no, it's cool that it can travel between worlds. That's pretty neat. But otherwise, that is a terrifying machine to me. I will maybe just take this moment while we're kind of on the Asriel subject to ponder if you thought any of this or even some of the Captain of Gunway stuff were things that were in the missing Asriel episode of season 2 that we did not get.
I don't think so, because I think that the way that they wrapped up season 2 was him actually approaching the fallen angels, and I don't think he'd gotten anywhere close to doing anything else. I think that was his first call, and I think that the missing episode would have just shown us his adventure getting to that point, as well as kind of explaining how the specters got out as well.
That would be cool. I really kind of just go back to what I said, something I said earlier. I really feel like it's something we're missing from kind of the book, but also the series too. Is just how Asriel got all of these things, and how did he hook up with the Gallivespians? How did he come up with the intention craft? And then how did he make it? Like, it was just him and Thorold, at the end in the ice and back at the end of season 1, and then he went into a world all by himself, and then now he has all these friends, and I just want to see how we get there. I wish we had so much more Asriel time. Maybe that's more of a criticism of just the series itself and like what we don't get. But
I want to know how he's bankrolling everything. I want to know how anybody in this place is bankrolling anything.
Right.
How Mrs. Coulter is bankrolling, staying on an island and still getting this little girl to go get her food and stuff. How she's been able to manipulate and evidently still keep an apartment where Father Gomez can get that dress, Lyra's dress, and use it as a spy fly, or use the spy fly to sex it, because that was Lyra's original blue dress from season 1, right? That the spy fly was checking out.
Maybe their world doesn't have capitalism because we don't see them like really go shopping, or like we see them like eat at a restaurant in London, but maybe they do go shopping back in season 1. I forget. I don't know. It is weird though.
Yeah.
Strange.
So and not only that, but I mean, he had to kill a kid to make that first door open. Now he uses his own demon to open up the next one. If I was Stelmaria, I'd say, you want me to bite down on that? Screw you. That's what I would say when he's trying to open the door to show a Gunway what he's been up to. But that's just me. I mean, he's made some serious advancements since he was writing things on that window in the north a long time ago.
Yeah. And I think I'm just overall curious of how he got there.
Yeah.
And why I want to see why he's had 0 time for Lyra.
Well, if you're doing all of that, when would you have time for anybody?
Right.
Oh, well, let's get to the next wheel of topics. Or is there anything else on the intention craft?
Okay, did we even fully explain like what it does, or like it just goes where you want it to? It's powered like the alethiometer and the knife, but it can go between worlds, right? Or can it just go in one world? It can go between.
I think Ngomwe's world is different than his own, right? Or where he has his Republic of Heaven as opposed to the Kingdom of Heaven. So I think that, and it's separate from Lyra's world, and he ended up showing up there at the end of the second episode. So
yeah, I guess I feel like we missed the jump between worlds when he went to go get Lyra, or maybe I just missed it. So
yeah, they didn't put all of it. They didn't have the special effects budget to do it twice in 2 episodes, I suppose.
Too many demons to create.
They can make it fly across the sky, but they can't add the bright lights to it. So yeah, they had to make more. They had to do more close-ups of Claymationvespians.
Okay, I hope that's the next topic that comes up on the wheel, because
let's spin and see. It did land on Claymationvespians. I can read that. That's one word. It's big letters. So let's look at this. And this is I don't know how they're doing the animation or whatever. And there's obviously motion capture of real humans at some point, and it even looks like actual people in some ways. But there are just things about their features that just seem blank and weird. And on top of that, their wings just look like a bunch of solar panels from Skylab. I know it's probably too dated. You guys probably don't know what Skylab even looked like. It fell to Earth probably before some of you were born. But I did not like the design of the Galavespians. I don't know what I expected, but I didn't expect that, Holly. It looks just too fake.
Okay. I have minor gripes too, but I can move past them. But I saw Claymationvespians in the doc, and I'm like, did I miss something about how they made this show? And I was like, they did not make these out of claymation and put them in the show. I was like, what is he talking about? And I made sure I went back, and that actually, I had missed the behind the scenes stuff that is up there it looks like it's only in episode 2 on the HBO Max app. But I found that because I was like, where does it say this? Like, what? I didn't know I didn't get the joke of the doc. But now that you say it, like the way the faces are blank, yeah, I kind of get what you mean. Yeah.
And their motion is a little weird.
Yeah, they have wings. They're like dragonfly people, but that's my gripe, is that
they look like Skylab solar panels.
They didn't. They needed to save money. So in the books, guys, they are little people, kind of like Lilliputians, I guess you could call them. So just basically
Lilliputians with Skylab wings.
Okay, but not in the books. They don't have wings in the book. In the books, they hatch little dragonflies, and they ride dragonflies around. They're so small that they ride dragonflies like dragons. It's really cute and awesome. and they decided to just kind of combine the two, I guess, to be economical. And I get it. They got enough little animals to have to animate, and flying dragonflies with humans on the back. I get it. I get it. It's fine. I'm okay with the change. I get it. I'm looking forward to seeing more. I'm really glad they were included, because in a different time with a lesser budget, those could be characters that were completely changed and rewritten. I really admire how close and true they are trying to stick with the story. As
They
wild
already
and
took the
crazy.
dragonflies away.
They did take the dragonflies away, but they kind of combined. Like, look, like I said earlier, we're not even done meeting different kinds of peoples, and who the possibilities of endless worlds are endless. So I'll take Dragonfly Galavespian combo for just if we're gonna get as much as we're gonna get. I'm fine.
Fine. Spin the wheel. What does it say, Holly?
The red corner, Yorick Burnison. I think I know that bear.
Yeah. I can't ever do a speech to text thing with him ever again. I tried that. Not even Burnison came out right. But I do love this scene. I love that he's just coming to get one of his own. Interestingly enough, the score for this is called The King, which is so appropriate for York, of course, because he is the king of the bears now. But he's coming to save one of his bears that got captured. And then why challenge him like this? I mean, I know that this happens more or less in the books too, kind of in a different way. But how does does Will think that this is the only way that you can get York's attention, is to challenge him? I mean, York told him, "Get out of the way, child." If I was Will, I would want York to do his business. I'd watch it. But Will, I guess, is a stand-up guy and doesn't want anybody innocent getting hurt.
Yeah, it's a weird approach, but it's pretty true to how it goes down in the book. So, I mean, it's just Will. And maybe Lyra has just told Will enough about Yorick Burnison that Will kind of how, like, maybe the best way to approach him. He's gonna, if Lyra's told him, yeah, he does know about Lyra. I mean, Yorick, because he says, I think I know that bear. So yeah, he knows he would never win in a fight, and he uses his knowledge that Lyra gave him to kind of outsmart him in the battle. And R.I.P. that beautiful sky iron helmet, though. I mean, he just cut his head sole.
Yeah. Have we talked about Amma enough? Because I love the way they did the sign language and all of that stuff. Very respectful to the deaf in the way that all of that was portrayed. Even Will, who did not know sign language, knew how to communicate. I thought all of that was great. And what a wonderful little character, who, like most of us, gets fooled by Mrs. Coulter at first and then figures out just what kind of a person she is. I loved her just saying, what kind of mother would do that? And Will has to tell her in the second episode, don't trust me. She's very cruel. That's the kind of mother she is. So I love that. But any other thoughts on Amma before we move on?
I was completely enchanted by her from the jump. They did make a change to the character. I believe the character in the book was a non-white character, I'm pretty sure.
Right.
And it's in a different location. I just can't exactly remember. And then with all the worlds, it's even harder to say. All the locations are kind of different. But I thought if they were gonna make a change to that, at least we did something like this with a hearing impaired person. And I thought that's really great representation, which we don't really get a whole lot of in TV. And I thought it was really beautiful that I thought it said something about Marisa, that she knew sign language and was able to communicate with her. But then I thought it was also, like you said, very endearing that Will just still spoke with her normally, so she could read his lips. And also the way Balthamos was able to just also communicate in sign language with her, and just that connection. I don't know. I loved it. It was real. The girl was just so adorable. Oh my God, so adorable. I just want to protect her at all costs, like throw her and Grogu like in the safest spots in the galaxy and just keep them safe. If anything happens to her, I'd be heartbroken. And when she jumped on that, I guess we're jumping ahead. But yeah, like she's precious. Oh, loved her.
Yeah, result
So
of one
good.
of my top 5 favorite character moments for sure for the episode.
Again, this is like, I think in a different version of this adaptation, that the Amma character could have easily been like written out or like, changed like in a different way. I really like that they kept it like this. And it just once again highlights Marissa's mothering abilities and how she can just show and put out like all this love that she has, but it's so like not what you think. Oh God, Ruth Wilson is incredible, man. God, I can't get over how good she is. Friendly Father Gomez.
Maybe we should think about how unfriendly Father Gomez actually is. This guy, what a creep. I know you said that you had a lot to say about him. And I think even just these first impressions that you get of him, let alone what happens in episode 2, I just think that this guy was, scary. Perhaps the scariest magisterium person that we've seen so far.
Yeah. And it may be due to recency bias. However, this guy looks a little bit I say at first glance in the trailer, or when I saw him in a trailer, I said, is that Fabian Frankel? And then seeing him close, I was like, God, it's not Fabian Frankel, but man, he looks a little bit like him, like enough to where I'm sure they were probably in the same like audition, like waiting room with a bunch of other guys that look exactly like they do, for various roles. And then his voice also sounded like Fabian Frankel from House of the Dragon, like from certain parts of House of the Dragon. And I was just like, oh no. So if you have not watched House of the Dragon with us, there's a character named Kristen Cole who I very much dislike, as do many, many people. And Father Gomez both resembles the character, sounds like the character, and in general is just an awful, gross person like the Kristen Cole character. So it's not a good start for Father Gomez and me, for sure. Ugh.
Yeah. Our podcast covered is Before the Dragon. Don't forget we're on the Double P, so be sure to check out the Joffrey of podcasts on the YouTube, same YouTube where you find this podcast, youtube.com/C/the word double, the letter P, the word media. They do a great job covering House of the Dragon as well. In fact, I'm pretty sure that I spent much more time listening to their podcast covering House of the Dragon than I did to my own, and I edit the thing. So that tells you something right there. Just because they're funny. So be sure to check those back videos out on the Double P Media YouTube. This guy, I mean, I don't know. This guy just gave me the creeps, even in the first thing. And of course, he would use a spy fly because it's one of those despicable. And he tells McPhail, it's like, well, it might be frowned upon. It's a little unconventional. A spy fly, which is what Marisa used also to try and track Lyra.
Don't you die on me, please.
I am famous for great audio, and that was some great audio there. Me sounding like I'm dying. Some kind of allergy happening here. That's a fine for me for coughing and hacking through a podcast. So that's the way that will go.
Cool.
Where did it land, Holly?
It says the double B's.
Double B's.
Baruch and Balthamos.
Oh, the angels.
Angels.
I loved the angels. I love the way that when they first appeared, just kind of like, okay, they're kind of glistening, like they've got glitter on them. That's what I thought. It's like, oh, they look kind of glittery. And then the thing that really sold them for me was when Baruch left and turned, it kind of phased out as he was flying away. I loved that. I thought that they looked fantastic. I loved their relationship, which was, again, one of my top 5 character moments for this 2 episodes. Loved the fact that they are in love. Balthamos, kind of a jerk sometimes. Well, no, let me put it differently. He's not a jerk. He's just a little bit too literal with things, I think, at least in this first episode, right?
Yeah, I kind of think that's like how angels are, though. I'm super glad we're getting these angels, and I agree with you about how they look. I think the way, I mean, them being made of dust, so them kind of like dissipating and like the dust remnants, the glittery dust remnants left behind is really great. In the books, depending on their class of angels, like, because they're different classes and hierarchy of angels, right? So depending on where they are, is like how well you can see them. So I think, okay. I have read the books, but it's been a minute, so I'm pretty sure I have this right, though. Like the higher ranking angels, you can see them much better. Like Zephania, like in the books, would be described as like she's like glowing. You can see her all the time. But with Baruch and Balthamos, Will describes them as like you can't really see them sometimes, especially when it's really bright out. And like kind of the best time to see them was like during the dusk, the way like the light would kind of go through them. So they obviously didn't want to do that for the show. So they just kind of, but I like how they still incorporated that look as part of them, like kind of phasing in and out.
Did you enjoy the Gangel kiss?
Of course I enjoyed the Gangel kiss. And that brings me to my next point. And what I was responding to what you said is like you thought he was too literal. I think that just kind of they're a lot like humans. They have a lot of human characteristics like the emotions, but they are like galaxy brain human. So I like, it's kind of, I guess the way I think of them is like they're like Dr. Manhattan, I guess, from like Watchmen, like that kind of like level that's he just thinks too big for small little human things. But I like that, but they can love each other, they have relationships, and they care for each other and have emotions, and they just live a really long time. So they're very human, except they just are like super big picture thinkers. So nuance and subtlety are kind of lost on them, and I think that's why maybe too literal for you.
I think in both the books and in the show, which did I think faithfully adapt the relationship here, but I always felt that Balthamos was maybe a little bit too dependent on Baruch.
Again, the codependent. Like I feel like that's the crazy thing about the angels in this thing is that they have a lot of the negative parts of being human as part of their personalities and their existence, just like we do. So they feel, all of those jealousy and pain and hurt and all of that stuff. I think it makes it super interesting, and relatable in a way that you didn't think we could relate to them. But I'm not a very religious person, but for some reason I'm always interested in shows like this, or things that kind of deal with religion stuff, even if it's not very religious. And so I think it's the angel hierarchy thing is really fascinating to me, and I like how it's its own lore here, and the rebel angels are, like you said, alluded to earlier, or like the good guys, and the authority angels are like the empire.
It landed on the double M.
The double M. Oh, here we go. It's
Mother Marisa ...
Our favorite part of the podcast is more Ruth Wilson praise.
All right. So why don't you go ahead? Let's get some Ruth Wilson here.
Oh, God, I feel like I don't know. I don't have anything more to say that I didn't already say. She was my top moment. She was just incredible acting, incredible. I should hate her, but I can't anymore. Like, she's just so dang good in this role.
I agree. There's some weird things about what Marisa is doing to Lyra and the way that relates to what's happening to Lyra to me. Here's a question that I wonder if TV show people are asking. At the end of the very first part of episode 2 for this series, Lyra finds out that Roger is in the land of the dead, right? And so we know that Mrs. Coulter has been drugging Lyra to keep her asleep. But also at the end of episode 2, or at the end of that very first part of episode 2, Pan says that he couldn't reach Lyra. He couldn't feel Lyra. So was Lyra actually that close to death? Is what Mrs. Coulter is doing actually drugging her that close to death? Or is Lyra just able to communicate with Roger throughout this episode and the next episode simply because, she is obviously got all kinds of talent with dust and could have something to do with the land of the dead? Now, I think that personally that it's just Lyra and her connection with dust. But I wonder if people who are watching this show just as a television show are asking these kinds of questions. Would you think that a television show person would be asking this kind of very narrow-minded question the same way that I just asked it?
I guess I didn't think about that aspect of it too much. I like what you're saying about her being drugged and maybe like kind of on the verge of death. I kind of like that interpretation. I don't know if that's accurate or not, because I feel like she was hearing Roger, like she's been dreaming about Roger since she left, like since she got to.
Well, she's at least been hearing his voice, that's for certain. But she didn't actually see Roger until the end of season 2, that post-credit scene.
That's
we
true.
just heard him say her voice when she first crossed through the world from her world to Tsutsugaze, right? And I also wondered, well, obviously they're messing with dust here when they're crossing between worlds. So I still would just wondered if it was Lyra's connection to dust that was making it possible for all these connections to happen with her. Or if it was the fact that Mrs. Coulter had come that close to killing her.
I don't know if it was her coming that close to killing her. I think another critique on this maybe like that, if she is asleep, how is Pan able to have like conversations and like with Mrs. Coulter and I somewhere and I didn't think too much about it. I was like, whatever. I feel like there's stuff in future books that kind of indicate that like maybe a demon can do some things while the human is asleep anyway, but it would also kind of make sense that maybe that was when Pan wasn't with her in the dream. He was kind of maybe awake while she was asleep and in the land of the dead dream, and he couldn't follow her there, so he was just awake and talking to Mrs. Coulter and like begging her to wake him up. So I don't know. It's hard to say.
Pan seemed very distressed about that. The fact that he couldn't follow her.
I was distressed about that. That was really heartbreaking. A little moment for me. I didn't like the way I felt. I didn't like the way Pan felt, and I was really sad. Really, one of my saddest moment in that episode. I felt really, really sad for Pan in that moment.
I don't like the fact that Pan's voice has gotten deeper also. I wonder if we saw Pan's voice actor, if he would also be an NBA player.
But Lyra's growing.
Okay, well, I guess that makes sense.
Yeah, I feel like Lyra definitely has more of a lady body now, a young lady body versus a young tween body. And like, not that they did anything revealing. I think it was just a little, it's obvious. And I think Pan's voice getting deeper kind of goes along with that for me.
All right. So everybody's in their sprouting stage,
Yep.
at least as far as human demon relationships go. We still don't understand why ghosts are that way, though. The dead. What else about Mrs. Coulter? Anything? I
Too
could
much.
not stand Marisa manipulating a deaf girl and the way that she manipulated her. That just drove me crazy. I love Amma for giving her the benefit of the doubt and believing her. I loved the anguish that Amma had when she discovered what was really going on. But to me, that actually sold me more and more against Marisa, even though it's clear that even though she doesn't know any other way, she is truly trying to protect her daughter.
Yeah.
She's trying to protect her daughter from this prophecy. She's trying to protect her daughter from this magisterium that's trying to, circumvent the prophecy. There's all kinds of things that's going on there. But if the only way that you can do that is to keep your girl asleep, it's just this really convoluted exhibition of love. To me, it's just really convoluted. I don't know. It's hard for me to take.
She's out of ideas and places to turn to, and like, I mean, that's all she can do. She doesn't have any help, and Lyra's just gonna run away from her. Like, I get why she's doing it. I don't condone it. I don't think it's okay, but I completely get it. And dang, it's again, she's just so good. And you hate her for manipulating Alma, and I'm just sitting there like, I don't like that she did it to her, but I'm just like watching her in awe that like she can just keep doing this to kids. And like, we know she's well practiced and charming those kids. That's how she got a bunch of them to bull bang her. So like, like poor Alma could have gone through so much worse. Marisa was actually pretty nice to her. She just lied to her and put salt in her. Oh, I'm getting ahead. Never mind.
Yeah. Oh, well, I was. The one thing that I always love is how Marisa is always surprised when someone shows her affection. When Amma gave her that hug, again, Ruth Wilson sells this so well, but Marisa is she's shocked, like. And she's not disgusted by it, or at least that's not the way I read it. It was just she was just shocked by it.
Oh, this is what this feels like. It's nice.
If only my daughter would do this. Oh wait, she can't. She's asleep. I drugged her. It's time for my favorite game, Holly's second least favorite game, right behind 3 words. It's time for What's Worse.
What's worse?
Oh no.
This is a game that's kind of like high school debate team. We pose a question. There are 2 sides to it. One person who gets to ask the question gets to argue whichever side they choose. The other person has to argue the opposite side, no matter how ridiculous that other side may be. Holly, do you want to ask a question first, or do you want me to ask a question first?
I'll go first. What's worse, being threatened by Father Gomez or just being Fra Pavel?
You know what? I'm going to go with being threatened by Father Gomez, and here's why. Fra Pavel is a librarian. It's essentially that's what he is. And librarians are important. I know that you think that they just sit around and they know a lot of stuff about books and they're supposed to have all of the answers. But librarians actually have to do a lot of research. They have to do things for you to help you make sure that you have the right answers. Fra Pavel is, in fact, the world's of Lyra's best librarian. What thanks does he get? He gets threatened by this guy, this upstart who evidently talks about flogging himself or at least beating himself up or doing his penance before the day starts so that he's made sure that he's covered all of the sins that he's about to commit. And this guy is creepy. I mean, Father Gomez is a dude who uses spy flies. His very eyes suggest that he might torture you and take you into his bed all in the same fell swoop. In fact, being taken into his bed might be torture. I'm saying that being threatened by Father Gomez is worse. What do you say to that, Holly?
I say, just by being Fra Pavel is going to get threatened by Father Gomez. Done. Mic drop. Bye. Moving on.
That's all you've got.
That's really
Existing as Fra Pavel just means that you have nothing but Father Gomez's in your future for the rest of your life.
I definitely picked the wrong. I mean, yeah, you got the winning argument there. I really like rats, and Fra Pavel's got a rat, so it's hard for me to argue that it's worse to just be Fra Pavel, except by the fact that he's Fra Pavel, and then all of the argument you just made about him being threatened, because he's going to be threatened because he is just Fra Pavel, and he's going to Fra Pavel his way through the magisterium, alethiometer, and make everyone mad, and he's going to McPhail Father President.
That's very good. That's very good. Folks, we will put it on the poll. While Twitter still exists, you will still get these polls asking what's worse, and you can vote Holly down. Let's move on and spin the wheel. We have spun the wheel for episode 2. The wheel landed on the Buruch period. Like the Baruch period. But the Baruch period, we barely knew you. We got a kiss from you, and then all of a sudden an angel just decided to fly right through you and make a big hole in you. Alarbus was that other angel. He was one of those unexpected visitors, and I guess the only unexpected visitor, to be perfectly honest. So I don't know what's going on there, but I hate that we lose. I know that we lose Baruch in the books as well, or that stuff happens. I did love the way that angels die. God, is that a sick thing to say? It sounds weird coming out of my mouth. But seeing the way that angels just kind of dissipate.
Like the demons.
Yeah, like the demons.
They're all made of dust.
Very good point. Excellent point. So I love that. Anything about the attack or anything like that that you wanted to talk about, Holly?
I didn't get a chance to really rewatch this episode very closely. So I do want to go back and look at the fight stuff. But I did, notice when I think it was Balthamos was just talking about his connection, and then we see Baruch getting to his destination, getting to Asriel's location, but you see the angel behind him. At first I was like, is this the way Balthamos is like looking like, and with him, he's like seeing him through his eyes behind him? I was like, or is this somebody bad? And then the episode confirmed later that it was somebody bad that was like creeping up on him, following him to Asriel. So it's kind of cool to see Angel fight, though. And then they land, and it's like a missile landing. So that's interesting. I guess there's things that are kind of like described in the books that you can't really imagine until you see it. And I guess an angel fight is one of those things for me. But I thought that was kind of neat.
Yeah, I kind of like the light show myself. As far as the almost literal fireworks that were going on in the sky. I did feel bad for Baruch. Really shook Balthamos. I mean, seriously shook him to the point where I don't know that I like Balthamos much by the end of the episode, the way he just flies away. That's just a little bit too look at me, Louis. It's a little bit too not thinking things through. The one person that you love that gave you just one job, and you're going to bail on it, which, if it was right as soon as it happened, that's when I would understand it. But you still go through all of these paces, and then Will says, "Now I'm going to go back and cut holes through the world, through the worlds, and go and get Lyra." And that's when you decide to bail. What's going on there, Holly?
Again, the angels are lots of human characteristics, especially as far as their emotions go. And I think this is how he's grieving. And he's like clearly in maybe like a denial stage right now, but he and I think you kind of hit it on the head earlier too when you said their relationship was maybe a little codependent because Balthamos doesn't know how to be anymore. But it's kind of, I mean, you're on the one hand, yeah, I do agree with you. He was acting, like really weak in that moment and he needed to be strong for Will. But if you lost your person, your significant other of 400 years, I guess you could, the way he described it, it was like almost each other's demons, like they thought of each other as one. And then you lose that part. I mean, the grief is going to hit hard when you have a relationship like that and a bond like they do.
So you're saying that
it is also frustrating to see like Balthamos it does seem a lot more weak compared to maybe how some humans might deal with their grief, and just running away so quickly and being a coward. He just doesn't know what to do.
So you're saying that Balthamos's grief was just something that he was at first in a little bit of denial of, and then when it really hit him, that's why he left at the time. I think
he doesn't know what to do. He doesn't know what to do, so he's lost, and he thinks whatever Will's doing, it doesn't matter anymore because his world doesn't matter anymore. He just lost his world.
Yeah. Okay. I can see that. It's just that
I can see Balthamos being one of the angels that is like just gonna go run and hide now because like what's his face was telling Asriel, I've already forgot, Alarbus. Sorry. Just like he was saying to the other one that has a weird name, Zephania. Zephania. I'm gonna stop talking.
I don't even know where to go with that. Spin a wheel.
I don't know where I'm at either.
Where did it land, Holly?
Bringing a broken knife to a gunfight.
Yeah, well, we could kind of tie this into it with some stuff that we talked about earlier about Marisa also, but I mean, Magisterium coming down with Father Gomez doing his thing with Marisa, and then you've got Will here who's being very slick, cutting into everything and very carefully and making sure to close all of his holes and all of that stuff. Except it seems to me that if he has to cut out of Lyra's world into this other world, then go across, then cut into Lyra's world again, then get Lyra, but they don't, and he closes that one, but then they go out a different way because Lyra says so. So I guess they have to go back to that original hole that he cut in order to be able to get back. And now that he's closed that hole off, how are they ever going to get anywhere else again? What is Will doing? I know he's desperately trying to protect Lyra and keep any pursuers from coming. Didn't stop a Claymationvespian from being able to get through a hole that it shouldn't have been able to get through because Will was already clearly closing it. I guess they can fly sideways pretty thin. I do like Stelmachia. Is that how you say that name? Stelmachia?
Salmakia. The lady Salmakia.
Stelmachia. Salmachia. Lady Salmachia.
Better call Salmakia.
Yeah, better call Saul Macchia. All right, that's excellent. So, yes, so I did appreciate her doing the sting on Mrs. Coulter and everything. I did appreciate her just communicating with Asriel. Wasn't that telegraph cool too?
The lodestone resonator. Oh, I yelled. That is those words is what I yelled when I saw it. I said lodestone resonator because it's the thing in the book, and it was really cool to see on the screen. So yeah, that was neat. That was neat. I liked it.
Yeah, me
It's
too.
dusty.
But I mean, so now Will is stuck in a world that with a broken knife, I don't think he can get out of. I guess he can try and find a way to repair it, but I don't know how he would do it without any help with somebody who knew the knife. And the only people that would probably know anything about the knife would be Chitagazi, and they're long gone because they've been eaten by specters or run to the hills. And he's got a mini flying Skylab with him also. But I guess she can use the lodestone resonator to communicate to Asriel that everybody's fine and safe, right? Because Asriel shows up at the end and expecting to find Lyra, and all he gets is the consolation prize of his ex-wife.
Maybe they can take one of the shards of the knife and make a tiny knife for the Vespian, and then she can cut through the world.
Wow. but she's not a bearer. She's not a bearer of anything except Skylab panels.
Oh yeah. Well, all right. Is Marisa the knife bearer now?
Is who?
Marisa Coulter, because she made him break the knife.
Oh, but she didn't take the knife from him.
She didn't take the knife. No. Oh yeah, it does have to be taken physically. That's right. Okay. It's not Harry Potter. Okay, got it.
Yeah. Although there was a Harry Potter reference when Marisa first comes up on Will, sneaks up behind him when he thinks he's got Lyra all to himself. She says this chamber has secrets or something like that.
No, okay.
So I love that. Or at least I think it was a Harry Potter reference.
The chamber, I don't know. I didn't hear it as a Harry Potter reference. That is literally the title of a movie if she said those words. So it's kind of funny.
Yeah. So anyway, anything else about Will? What have you got on Will here? I loved his relationship with Amma. I loved his relationship with York. And the fact that Balthamos at least stuck around long enough to realize that the sun root would help wake Lyra up, because they just have to wait for it to wear off otherwise, right?
Yeah.
And Amira Wilson's doing a really good job.
He's really good. I really like him. I think I like the way he deals with everybody. He takes kind of a different, it's like he always knows just the right approach to take with everyone. And it was so smart the way he played.
Coulter, yeah.
So smart. And I was even surprised to learn and see that, like, oh, she wanted him to stay, and it didn't work. And I was just like, oh my God, Mrs. Coulter almost never loses. So just to get outsmarted by Will again, it's fantastic. I love it. But she got him in the end with the knife, though, unfortunately. Gosh, she got in his head.
Man, well,
his mom. It's not cool, man. It's like, don't talk about Will's parents to Will. That's a sensitive subject, okay?
Yeah, he's lost his dad and his mom. At least that he knows that his mom is with someone. At least in the television show, is with someone who is good for her, right? Because didn't he get told that at some point in season 2, maybe?
I think we know she's safe.
I know what it was. Lyra told him she read the alethiometer. And it was when they were still in Will's world, like at Oxford, I think on the bench, when she was reading the alethiometer there, and she said, this guy is good, so she's safe, is what she had told him. Yeah. So at least he's got that. But just the fact that he, I guess, probably has abandonment issues in regards to his dad, even though that's kind of got a little bit resolved, even though he did have a lot of tension there when he first saw his dad. But, he feels like he's basically doing the same thing to his mom, and that really messed with him and ended up breaking the knife.
Yeah. Well, and then, all of that, he is insecure about all of that, and then she basically calls him out on it and makes him makes it worse, explodes his guilt for abandoning her. It's awful. And then she has the audacity to be like, what did you do? Like, I wanted to that was the one moment I wanted to punch her, to be like, you're goading him, he breaks the knife, and then you have the audacity to ask what he did. Like, no, ma'am, that was you. That's all you broke the knife. He was holding it, but you broke it.
Yeah, well, not only that, but then, she pulls a gun on him and says, get out of here, please. Basically, don't make me shoot you, because the
You're
one thing that
useless
you were
now.
useful to me for is now no longer available.
So
yeah.
she really showed all her whole hand there. So I'm not gonna have much hope for getting help from Will in the future.
I wouldn't think so. That's for sure. So now I guess she's, I don't know, what's Asriel gonna do with her?
I don't know. So we're at this point. I mean, we know I'm glad they didn't go with Mrs. Coulter, but it would have been kind of interesting if they did, because what is she doesn't want to bring Lyra back to the magisterium. She's a bad mom. She's done terrible things as a mother, but I think she's fully on board with keep my daughter alive and away from the magisterium now.
She's totally convinced that she's protecting Lyra in the best way possible, which is deluded, and I mean, it's delusional in its own way, but I don't think she means any. That's why they're allowed to walk, or why Salmakia gets her chance to sting Coulter in the first place, because Lyra walks in front of her and says, please let me go. And she's definitely not going to kill her own daughter, because that's what everybody else wants to do. And obviously she doesn't want to do that. It is
right. But I think now, she's not really opposite Asriel as she was in maybe back in season 1. So now that Marissa's kind of swung away from the magisterium, it will be interesting to see how her and Asriel get along or don't get along, and maybe we'll get a little bit of insight into why they work it out. That'd be interesting to see.
It landed on Mary makes a pit stop, and timing is everything. That's a lot of words, and I was able to read that. What do you know?
Do you know prescription?
So, not exactly where I expected us to first meet Mary Malone, but that's coming from a book perspective, which I'll put in the book section. I'm just saying that, for her to show up just a few minutes after Ogunwe and Asriel and the others have evidently left, what great timing. If we could all just get on the same page for once, we wouldn't have near as much story to go through. But she stops and she talks to two people from Ngumwe's army that decided to stay behind, I guess. And she's doing a whole lot of talking about, you got to be you. I wasn't all that impressed. I would love to see her. I just feel like it was a waste of good screen time for her. That's just me. What did you think about Mary's visit to Ngumwe's world, which I'm still trying to figure out what that world that is. I guess it's a totally different unnamed world. Have we even heard the name of that world? We haven't even talked about Ngumwe that much, but I like him as a character too.
I don't remember the defining characteristic of that world. I'm pretty sure they're a no demon world, but I don't know if they have anything else weird. Or wait, Gunways, are they from? I feel like maybe the Galavespians are from the same world as a Gunway, but maybe no, that's not.
No, not in the television show anyway.
Okay,
because on Gunway, right, when they came to free him, he said, "You and your friend, thank you to you and your little friends." So I don't think he had met them.
Maybe it's like our world, but just kind of adjacent to our world, not real, more like our world, but not our world.
Their church is called the Temple.
The Temple, yes. Okay. We don't really know much is the point. I don't think we know much from the books either.
Yeah, I never was quite clear on where he was actually from.
This is the second time that Mary has run into young ladies and hung out with them for a little bit. on her journey. So, but I liked this for. I agree. She didn't do much again, but this is just more of that world building that I personally am getting a lot out of. It's helping me for like that's more of a Gunway's world, even though we don't see a Gunway in it. We see what kind of people they are and what they're dealing with, and another theme across all the worlds, in addition to like the demon severing, does seem to be this thing with women not being able to have like be very well educated, because those girls even brought up that if they like their life, because even if they went to the temple, they wouldn't be able to read and do what they are doing now. So even though their life is hard, they at least have more freedom as women. So I think I liked that aspect. I like that. That's not really something
Sure.
from the book, but it's a nice little pattern that we're seeing in the show as they go from world to world, in addition to the children severing, just the general treatment of women. It's interesting.
Yeah. Anything else on Mary?
No, I'm happy to see her. She's just such a comforting presence on screen, and it's funny. I guess we didn't really talk about it much, but like reminder from season 2, she's the serpent, like that's something imagery that we just associate with evil and badness. But
Here it is once again wrapped in goodness. Yeah.
the way she is, like she's just like such a wholesome, sweet, pure person. I love her so much. She's the best. She really is the best. And kind of going back to that thing I was talking about with tracking the women, like she was the most free woman of all of the women characters we've met so far, like she could do her science. Nothing was inhibiting her from pursuing her goals except for money, because that is the devil in our world. So
okay, I can read this one too. Lyra could use a change of clothes in the land of the dead. I mean, it's those same triple P's, pair of purple pajamas all the time, everywhere she goes. She doesn't seem to be able, even when she wakes up and she's in slightly different clothes, when she wakes up, it seems like you can't go to the land of the dead unless you're wearing your purple. However, we've already talked about a lot of these things. Her standing up to Marisa when she's holding the gun on Will. And Marisa is trying to give him a chance to leave. But I love that the defiant Lyra that we know and love comes back when she's finally awake enough to do so, and says, please let me go. I also love that when Salmakia says, you have the knife, I'll take you to Asriel. And the first thing that she says is, no, we're not going there. I love that. Now, where are they going to go? Well, right now they're stuck in a world that we don't even know what world it is. And it's the only world that we know that they're in, or have the capability to ever be in again. But at the same time, it seems like that there's a mission in mind. She did promise Roger that she was going to find him and help him, right, in the beginning of this episode. So is that why she doesn't want to go to Asriel, or does she just hate Dad? Or both?
I think she both probably, but take away from Lyra on this topic, but I just started thinking about Asriel's like how Asriel interacted with fatherhood in these first couple of episodes, between like a Gunway, talking with him about his family, especially when they return and he watches a Gunway be reunited with his daughter, and the love that's there, and the way Asriel is watching, and he's like, oh, that's so sweet, and like, oh, like how nice. But he also later, when they're talking about Lyra, it's like, oh, your daughter's involved, and we're not gonna go find her, you don't care? And you're like, nah, like she's fine, she don't need me, like she's got just it's strange watching Asriel like look at the good fathers around him and basically feel nothing, feel no guilt for what kind of a father he's been. And even doubling down and is not caring for her, until he finds out that she has the knife. And then he's like, okay, yeah, let's go.
Right. Yeah. Not unlike the way that Marisa has intentions to use Will. It seems that he has intentions to use his own daughter, which could still be very much a clashing point for him and Marisa once she finally wakes up.
Mm-hmm.
You're right. That's setting up a very interesting prospect to see some good character stuff there, and maybe see some. What if we get one scene of James McAvoy and Ruth Wilson at the end of season 1?
Yeah,
I think.
that was a good scene though. Oh my God,
it was a really good scene. So if we get more of that stuff, especially if there's fire between them over Lyra or anything like that, it'll be fantastic to see. For certain.
Lyra's gonna need so much therapy when this adventure is all said and done with. Like, oh my God, the trauma, so much trauma from her parents.
Interestingly enough, and I guess it's probably just because she was drugged so much, and we'll probably see her be a lot more active and everything. We didn't get a whole lot of things with Daphne Keene or with Lyra, other than her trying to escape once, and being scared. And then at the end, when she's standing up to Mrs. Coulter, and of course the big moment where she holds Will's hand.
Yeah.
One thing that I love is the fact that this girl's been asleep for a long time, or drugged and barely, probably just woken up enough just to eat and then put right back under. So I think Will really is tired and wants to actually get some sleep, and she's just wide awake. She's
right.
wired,
she can't sleep.
man.
She's just like, oh, no, I'm not tired.
I love that. But I, of course, love Lyra. But I just felt like that, these 2 episodes felt much more like Asriel. Especially, it seemed a lot more Asriel of an Asriel kind of 2 episodes than it seemed any other character, and how he's building this up. And like you said, it kind of fills in a gap because when we see Asriel again in the books, he's already built all of this, and there's not really that much of an explanation of any. I mean, Ogunwe's already there, the Vespians are already there. So it is cool to get this information kind of filled in, to me, at least from a book perspective. And, maybe they're taking some liberations with it. Maybe they're not. I don't care. Just I'm always the person that's like, to me, even a poorly told story is better than not having any story at all. Don't leave me to my own devices. Don't leave me to my own imagination, because it's just too crazy. Holly can attest to that.
And again, with the TV series, like what a perfect opportunity to like use those times in the story where it might be slower, or you are like waiting for stuff to happen, to just go ahead and like build out some of that stuff. It's going to make everything more impactful much later anyway. So,
nah, not me. Skip ahead.
No,
catfish like to say, skip ahead.
Double P classic right there.
Yeah, that's a Joffrey podcast classic, especially when they get to food descriptions of George's books. Speaking of which, if you have any thoughts just like we do, we want you to share them with us. Be sure to tweet at the Dust Podcast on Twitter. Send emails to mattsaudioblog@gmail.com, mattsaudioblog@gmail.com. You can use that same spelling for Hive Social. You can use that same spelling for and leave comments at the website, mattsaudioblog.com. You can leave comments on our YouTube videos, which are on the Double P Media YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/C/the word double, the letter P, the word media. Or you can just do youtube.com/the @double P media, since we have these new fancy little handles now. And our podcast actually has its own special little playlist where you only get His Dark Materials videos. I suggest that you don't just visit there. I suggest that you visit all of the great stuff. They're covering 1899. They've been covering all of the great Star Wars shows. They've been doing a great job just covering everything. So just cover it all by subscribing to their channel, hitting those like buttons on everything, and commenting on everything they do. Because, like I said, 23,000 views of a Babylon Berlin video still only get you a steak at Ugly Lou Betty's or some fancy restaurant in Atlanta. So let's do Bubba a solid. Let's make him millions of dollars so he can actually afford that mansion that he's already purchased.
Just go to Texas Roadhouse like the rest of us, Bubba.
Budget, Bubba. Double B. All right. So we spin the wheel again, right? Spin.
Triple M.
Triple period, triple M.
Triple M, and then there's like more double M's under the triple M. More Mother Marisa. Masochism monkeys. Wow. Okay, that's a lot.
Wow. Okay, that's too many M's for me to keep track of. I know that Catfish does things like septuple M's and septuple things. I can't keep track of all of it. What do you want to say about Mother Marisa this time around? We've already been talking about it a lot in relation to the other characters.
Yeah,
so I don't know if there's a whole lot to add. Like I said, I really loved it when Demon Monkey got to hit her in the head.
I loved that she gave him the opportunity when she says, "Give it your worst." I was like, what is about to happen? And then she handed him that rock, and I and the monkey celebrated. You know what? Good for the monkey. Well deserved. Poor thing's been beaten a lot. Again, always worried about Marissa's mental state.
I will say that, even though we didn't get to see the monkey hitting her in the head, that cut that she showed Father Gomez, I see those in ER all the time.
I'll say it was wasted. That free shot from the monkey was wasted because I think it was working up until Father Gomez made that move to go inside, and then she flinched to jump up, and she messed up. She done goofed.
She couldn't hold her poker face.
That was it, man. That was all. And then everybody knew in that moment. Everybody knew it was over. It was over. God, that was so great. So all that was for nothing because she messed up.
Exactly. One last topic here on the wheel. It has landed on Asriel's angel torture. And we've already talked about Asriel a lot, but let me just ask you this, Holly. It's the game that's sweeping the nation, where Matt and Holly will decide on situations in the show that they would actually show up to see. Holly, my prompt cards here says that you're from the South, that you're a wimp when it comes to cold, and that you love animals. So, with that said, your first question comes to you, contestant Holly. Would you show up to see Asriel torture, even if it's a bad angel, this Alarbus or whatever? Would you show up for that? Would you be a person who would be like, yeah, I want to see that happen? I know that nobody else but Star Mario was in the room with him at the time, but that just, I couldn't do that to anything. I couldn't. I don't care if it is war. There's a reason why, we put a whole bunch of Nazis in the ground after the Nuremberg trials. Torture is just not in my thing. And I really disliked Asriel after this. How did you feel about it?
I mean, you mean you disliked Asriel more than you already did because he's been.
I think his cause is noble. I think he's a terrible person leading a great cause.
Yeah, which has been true from the beginning. For him, no, I would not want to bear witness to any kind of torture at all, like you. It was weird and upsetting, but also, again, a new perspective that we don't have from the books, so very fascinating to me at the same time. When and how did he know to build this? Like, again, I think maybe that's my little nitpicks is like, when did
his understanding of dust has become exponentialized to a point that just doesn't seem fathomable, right?
even if he's super smart and understands dust, like, does that also make him an engineer and all of these things that he's able? I mean, maybe, but I just don't see it. Like, I feel like I don't know. I don't see him actually. I don't know. I was like, he has to be hiring people to do this. I don't get it. I don't get how he comes up with this. I feel like he couldn't do all of this alone. He would need other experts in the field to help him build these things, I think.
Well, and just the name of that metal, I can't remember what name he said. It started with an A.
It sounded like adamantine, so I was just thinking of Wolverine the whole time.
Oh, which would be great, considering that wasn't he the one who played the
adamantium?
Maybe.
Hold on. One of them, I think they said adamantine, and maybe Wolverines are adamantium. Or I have that flipped. I don't know. I might need to rewatch, but yeah, that was my thought.
Well, my point being is that since he played Professor X in the X-Men prequels, it would be great if it was the same thing. That would be great.
Yeah.
But
and then we have Daphne Keene and Logan, so we got a little full circle Marvel.
Yeah, there you go. It's all interconnected. In fact, his Dark Materials is actually set in the Marvel universe, not the Marvel.
Yeah, the Marvel Cinematic Universe is the mutant. It's just the mutant world. So Will just hasn't found it yet with a knife.
Exactly, but that sounds like an expensive metal. Again, Where did he get the money to build this thing? How did he know that this is the metal that contains dust? It's all just crazy. It's all crazy. But no, I would not show up for it.
What's worse?
Here we go. What's worse? Losing your millennia-long love or flying away when the person that your love assigned you to needs you most?
All right. I mean, obviously, what's worse for everyone is the second option, flying away after you lost your long-lost love when the other person that you were assigned to protect needed you the most is the worst, because now you're hurt, and so Will and Yorick Burnison, and the knife got hurt. See, that's what happened. The knife got hurt. That's worse.
That's a good
Balthamos leaving. It's Marisa and Balthamos' fault that the knife is broken.
Okay. All right. That's a very good argument. And compelling reasons, which are completely wrong, and here's why. Balthamos is obviously all about me, right? So what do you think's more important to Balthamos when it's all about you? When it's all about Balthamos, what's worse for him is losing Buruch. Once he loses Baruch, it doesn't matter what else happens in the world. It doesn't matter whether the world falls apart. It doesn't matter whether what Enoch / Metatron, as Alarbus calls it, doesn't matter if he wins or loses or anything. It's over for you. So, I mean, how could anything be any worse once you've lost your millennia-long love? I just feel like maybe we should put that to the poll, ladies and gentlemen, at the Dust Podcast. Look for that poll on the Twitter feed and vote for it. Vote for Holly. Vote for Holly. Vote for Holly. So, 3 words is next.
I gotta make them up now.
Words. This is where you try and describe the episode in just 3 words. Don't give me 7 words and a hashtag. Don't give me dashes in between 15 words. Don't give me 17 sets that end up making one long sentence. Just give me 3 words. 3 words to describe the episode. That's what I am asking for. That's what Holly always produces in about 30 seconds when she realizes that she hasn't come up with 3 words for her segment. Here's what my 3 words are for episode 1 of series 3. I'm going with a double S.
Double S.
Yeah, sign language slithering.
That's a triple S.
It's not because there's only two S's in there.
I'm tired.
At any rate, not even really a double S because there's an actual word in between. But this is a catfish-like thing to do. He does all kinds of weird things with the doubles these days. So I got to find my own path. Got to find my own way. But this is obviously this episode. Mrs. Coulter showed her best and her worst all at the same time. She got an undeserved hug and was surprised by it, as we might all suspect. And she's very good at sign language. Who knew about that? But she's slithering around as per usual. Loved it. What's your 3 words?
My 3 words for the first episode are clear your mind. Which is what Stelmaria told Asriel to do, and what I just had to do to come up with those 3 words.
Excellent choice. Now it's time for the second episode of our 2-episode set. No chance for you to rethink this. What's your 3 words, Holly?
Bear on boat.
Oh, okay.
There was a polar bear on boat. That's all. I just went simple this time. Sorry. I went fast. That was what I got. Bear on a boat. Bear on a boat.
I'm going to regurgitate something I said earlier in my ratings, and my 3 words for this episode is triple M.
Triple M?
Yeah, mangled magisterium mercenaries.
That's cheating. You can't do that.
What do you mean I can't do that? It's 3 words.
Yeah, but you can't use your rating as your 3 words.
Why not? I mean, normally our ratings are doubles. So
what? I'm never participating in 3 words anymore because I'm going to do it in the intro. Boom. Bye. I have another 3 words. I have 3 words. Can I share 3 words I have for this podcast that I did not make up, but our good buddy, fellow podcaster at here at the Double P Media came up with, and I love it so much when it gets said on the other podcasts. Matt's music analysis.
That's so funny. Analysis.
That's what Catfish says.
He does a quadruple M. He does Matt Murdock's musical analysis.
Oh, I'm sorry. I like Matt's musical.
Well, it's clear that you don't actually listen to any of the company products. So maybe you should be fired.
Okay. Good luck getting a host next week. All right, bye. Good night, everybody. 3 words. Submit your 3 words to add the Dust Pod on Twitter while it still is around.
Eliana, our friend from the Girls Gone Canon, who is at a rhythmetric. Is that how you say that? A rhythmetric. The only person who submitted 3 words this week. Viva Magenta McPhail. Excellent. I did like his new position, his colors, his simultaneous evilness and buffoonery for McPhail, who we didn't really comment that much on, but he kind of seemed like a tool. He actually, Father Gomez seemed to manipulate him pretty well these 2 episodes, right?
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't have much more to say. I still think 3 seasons later, it's just really endearing that a father and daughter are on the same show, even though they don't really share any scenes together. I think it's sweet. And as I was watching the end credits, they I think they did alphabetical order for the cast, like by cast name. They did alphabetical order, so seeing their names together next to each other, it was cute. I liked it.
I will see. I don't think of him as Daphne's father. I just think of him as the character who is a persona of their name, McPhail. Sounds like a great McDonald's product for a complete failure of a person, right? So I love it. That's all we have for 3 words. Remember, we want yours. The only way you can enter the contest and win. Oh, where did they go? I don't even know where they went. They're around here somewhere. The only way you can win those Funko Pops is if you submit feedback. How do you submit feedback? You send tweets to the Dust Podcast, you email mattsaudioblog@gmail.com or Hive Matt's Audioblog, or you can comment at the website, send emails to mattsaudioblog@gmail.com, all that stuff, which we've already said many, many, many times this podcast already. So don't let me hold you up anymore. But we do have some feedback from people who will be entered into our contest.
Oi, can we get the feedback out of the monitors, please?
Eliana's entered into our contest. She probably doesn't want to be, but she's entered into our contest, as are Dragonfell UK, Elysia CB, and Birdnut95. I love Cassidy. Cassidy's great. All three of them just gave us some tweets in regards to our my musical anthology score, but unfortunately, Jonathan, who's at Dragonfell UK, he said, another wonderful musical analysis for musical concepts without getting spoilery for his Dark Materials Series 3. Sadly, I won't be joining up to listen this season since BBC One will be so far behind everyone else. We'll be listening once we get to Ep 2 after Christmas. Well, you can catch all of our back episodes. And since you are, maybe you're not privy to the BBC iPlayer, but if you are, then you're going to be ahead of us in a couple of weeks anyway. So look forward to that at least, Jonathan. Elysia Brenner, at Elysia CB, who is now entered in our contest, said, I listened to your pre-analysis of the season 3 score, and it's a fascinating breakdown. I'll definitely be listening for season 3 and going back through the older episodes as I have time. Who would ever have enough time to go? Thank you, Elysia, but who would ever have time to go through all of the back episodes of everything that I do? The season 1 rewatch podcast, you probably don't want to mess with those, to be perfectly honest. It's just me, and it's me just commenting as the episode plays, and it's not very interesting. But that's, I can bash my own podcast, right? Am I okay? Can I do that, Holly?
Can I do it?
Well,
Oh no, I killed him. I killed Matt. He's dead.
Matt is dead. Matt is dead. Cassidy, we love Cassidy at Birdnut95 on Twitter, says, always love Matt's deep dives into the music of his Dark Materials, and this episode really got me hyped for the full soundtrack. Cassidy, remember that there's already going to be a soundtrack for each week. Lauren is releasing a volume 1, a volume 2, a volume 3, and a volume 4 as they air on the HBO, which covers the first 2 episodes, the second 2 episodes, etc., etc. Lauren also gave us a nice endorsing tweet earlier this week when I released this podcast. Thanks very much to him. I don't think he wants to be part of our contest, but guess what he does? He has lots of contests as well where he gives away really cool things, signed scores by cast members from all of these huge movies that he does and everything. And he always does them for a good cause. So be sure to check out his Twitter as well. That is Lorne Balth on Twitter, and lornebalth.com to find all of his socials. Holly, we finally made it through. I know that it's been a while since you've had to do a podcast alone with me. I know that is a rare and wonderful experience to have. Thank you for joining us this time around. Any final thoughts about the episodes or about what's going on in your world anywhere? Even though you've been fired from the double.
Apparently I died on the House of the Dragon podcast. I don't recall dying. I think I died. I think I was writing on, never mind. Let me not spoil House of the Dragon. I'll just stop. Anyway, I'm alive. In House of the Dragon, Game of Thrones related news, which is where me and Matt first started podcasting together. I'm going to the HBO official Game of Thrones convention in Los Angeles this week, which is the week of December 7th, is today, of 2022. So that's happening. It's going to be exciting. Ramin Djawadi, they just announced it's going to be there, Matt. You got any questions for me to ask him if I meet him?
No, Ramin is cool.
Yeah, he's cool.
Yeah.
I wasn't gonna harass him.
It doesn't matter what answer he would give. It would be too cool. It'd be
It'd be
too cool
too
for my
cool.
question. So
Should I not
I-
even approach? Like, just lay low. Like, don't even bother.
he's a super nice guy. No, go talk to him.
Okay, cool. All right. But yeah, so that's where I'll be this weekend. And then other than that, yeah, just trying to find time in between Christmas shopping and traveling and working a very busy job to watch 2 episodes of his Dark Materials a week for the next few weeks and then podcast about it. So I will say I have not had the time to kind of like go back into book land. I did reread The Ember Spyglass after. Oh, we got to still do book talk, Matt. I forgot. I'll just save this part for later. That's where you can find me.
Dun, 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 dun. Book spoilers talk is coming up after you hear all of our podcast information. Thanks for watching. If you are a TV only person, we thank you for sticking around this long. We'll talk to you next week. If you're a book person, stick around.
You're listening to The Dust, a His Dark Materials podcast. Tweet the podcast at The Dust Podcast. Send emails to mattsaudioblog@gmail.com and find all back episodes and other information at mattsaudioblog.com. Please subscribe, rate, and review wherever you get your podcasts. Part of Double P Media, doublepmedia.com.
You're still here. You're still here. What does that mean? It must mean that you have read all of the His Dark Materials book series, and maybe even the Book of Dust series, which is something I haven't done. So don't spoil me. But let me tell you that if you have not read the His Dark Materials book series and you don't want to be spoiled, don't let us spoil you. Turn off the podcast now. Turn it off now. Now. Why wouldn't you turn it off now? Okay, that's enough. Let's talk about these book spoilers. I have a few notes, which probably will infuriate you, Holly, but okay. Here's the thing that I didn't understand, and one of the reasons why I probably even a little bit of this frustration filtered into my show analysis, which I'm sure they have a workaround for this, but if Will really sealed them off in that world, there's still got to be some hole open, right? Because how the heck will they get to York in order to have him fix the knife? Because he's the one that's got to fix the knife, right?
They didn't go back to the world. Okay, maybe I didn't do a really good job of tracking like how many
Well,
windows
see, that's
we
the
went
thing.
in and out
They
of.
didn't make it clear which world they were in, but they definitely were in that blankish, just kind of rocky kind of place, which was definitely not Lyra's world that he was using to walk in between the windows in order to get back to Marissa's
And we know
place.
Yorick stayed in that spot he left him in. We're near the boat, right?
Yeah, he told them to leave. And he was still fighting off Magisterium people when he was taking care of he was starting to get him to some bones to pick probably, but
Yeah.
he did not go back through that window with him. So I was under the impression that world that they fled to was a different world than Lyra's world. So if that's the case, because he's always counting the steps, right? So he couldn't, if he was just counting the steps, he couldn't possibly be back in Lyra's world, and that's where Yorick is. So now they've kind of dug themselves into a story point hole where it's like, how are they going to get Yorick to where they are, or how are they going to get to where Yorick is if he's got a knife that doesn't work?
That's a good question that I didn't spend hardly any time thinking about because I just assumed the place they got back to was going to be, I was like, okay, well, Yorick's probably there, like somewhere, and Yorick's going to fix the knife. It's going to be fine. So no, now I'm stressed about that, even though I know the knife is going to get fixed. I don't need to stress about it. I know it's going to happen. I have extra stress now. Didn't think about that. I was...
Now,
My
I guess
first,
there's
my
a possibility that he might have left a window open somewhere there that he could
yeah.
get back to Lyra's world from. The
I just feel like
problem
they've
that I
been
have,
so
though, is that he's
careful.
been very, very careful to close
Yeah,
all of the holes behind him,
agreed.
which is good for not letting more specters out of the place.
Agree. I'm worried. I'm legit worried now. I don't know how they're gonna do that.
Does anybody have a book reader have an answer for me? Tell me as a showrunner yourself, how would you solve this situation? Or do you just think I'm crazy? Please tweet at the Dust Podcast. You can send emails to mattsaudioblog@gmail.com, all that good stuff. What other issues do we have here? Any issues for you, Holly?
Issues?
Or
No.
just points?
Yeah, I was like, the only issue I really have besides Roger is just like the Asriel. Just want more. Like, how did Asriel have the means and the time and the ability to do all of these things? Like, that's a nit that I like to pick at. Ugh. But man, the worst moment, like hardest, like, oh crap, my feelings are gonna be so hurt was when Pan talked about not being able to go. Well, like, where'd you go?
Yeah.
Oh, no, I can't. I'm not ready.
Oh, and just I love how they
Ready.
emoted Pan in the way that he in certain times, especially when Lyra was asleep and he was like talking to Mrs. Coulter. I mean, obviously, I guess there's the connection of the drug or whatever would make him that way too, but he actually seemed to be in pain. And I'm just keeping imagining this whole boat trip where they have to separate and all of that, what that's going to do to Pan.
The physical pain they're gonna feel. Ugh, God.
And because he just seems exhausted. He doesn't seem exhausted from drugs. He seems exhausted from something else. I thought that was a very good animation of that. And when he told Lyra that he couldn't follow her, then I was like, oh, okay, yeah, they're doing it now. They're showing that
They're setting it
separation
up,
now.
yeah.
So
Well, I'm also really glad that they didn't like make us have to think or worry about where Roger is, and they kind of said the land of the dead like early, because I mean, it was going to be hard to even like pretend to speculate like what could possibly be happening when eventually we're going to get to a point where we are just going to the land of the dead. So I'm really glad I don't have to worry about dancing around that anymore. Because she's even already said it once now, right? That she wants to go and try to find him. Did she say it yet?
well, she told him that she would find him and help him.
No. Okay.
But she hasn't said it to anybody else. She did say, I'm not gonna go. No, we're not going to Asriel, is what she did say. So
I'm ready.
You know, the implied thing for book readers is, of course, we're going to go find Roger.
Yeah.
You know, maybe that's why I kind of posed that question in the TV show talk, because I wanted people to hopefully will give us feedback on whether they gauged it in the fact that it was Asriel hate, or whether it was, you know, they thought that she was going to try and do something for Roger.
I mean, oh, Roger. God, so sad.
Yeah.
Why did you have to grow up, Roger?
That didn't bother me near as much as the Gallivespians. Opposite,
way opposite. The Gallivespians did not bother me. Roger bothered me.
I mean, it's the land of the dead. They're gonna make Lin-Manuel Miranda look like he's a white person.
We're gonna watch them die. We're gonna watch them. They're gonna die in there, right? They die. Don't they die in there? I know we like watched in the book, they watched like the dragonflies eventually like die. Oh man. Oh, now I'm sad for the Gallivespians. Shit. Sorry, I cursed. Oh no. I'm fired.
Well, I get the
just in time because I need to go to bed. I'm sorry. Well, let's wrap this up.
Okay. So the last thing that I've got is, well, there's really two things, but one is real quick. That Weeks Ahead trailer that was at the end of episode 2.
We're seeing a lot of
shots of a lot of Land of the Dead, shots of Lyra at the abyss, jumping across the place there. Just it gave me just the chills. complete chills. And then I also wanted to say this about Mary Malone. She's been getting, we mentioned how she's been talking to these girls and everything. She's been getting lots of practice about teaching girls how to be themselves.
How to
Which
life.
is, yeah. And I'm not sure how that's going to translate to, kissing boys, but there's got to be something in there. She's practicing being the serpent, right? So
Mary Malone hasn't let me down yet. I'm not worried. I'm really not. I'm looking forward to Malefa too. I can't wait. Let's go.
yeah, as obviously there's been photos of those and everything, and we haven't seen what their lower sides look like, or what their seed pods look like. Um, I know that the Gallivespians don't bother a lot of people, but this really bothered me the way that they looked for some reason. Maybe it's just me, probably just nagging on computer graphics. I mean, I even said a couple of the shots of House of the Dragon look terrible CGI wise and what have you. So, I mean, maybe I'm just being a little bit too nitpicky on this, but it just seems to me that if they can't get the Gallivespians the way that I feel like would be a little more realistic, I'm really worried. Even with those couple pictures that we saw from Entertainment Weekly or Vulture magazine or whatever, I'm really worried about what the Malefa are going to look like, especially if they're rolling around on seed pods. I mean, it's a strange world, and these are strange creatures, and so I guess you can kind of accept it as strange. But our human brains aren't trained to see anything that's foreign.
Okay, you can't make that argument because that is the exact argument against the dire. Like you're using the opposite argument you use against the dire wolves, and we can't go there, and we don't have time. But like that argument you're making now, you should be arguing for the dire wolves and having more of them in Game of Thrones because we do know what they look like. And you said that was the problem with the CGI of the dire wolves is we can conceive what a large dire wolf would look like. It just doesn't make sense. It doesn't work. But now you're saying that we can't conceive what the Mulef will look like, so it's going to look weird. Can't have it both ways. Mic drop. Good night. At Hunt Pants on Twitter for a little while longer until Twitter dies.
Bye.